theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong.
Good afternoon, Warren. I don't feel like you're a person who's particularly interested in the Oscar campaigns and everything of those nature.
You know me very well, Suzy.
You're not a very pop sort of person.
No. Why? What do you want to tell me about them?
Well, Maestro, the film today, has 7 nominations at the Oscar this year.
I did know that, yes. I knew it was nominated.
Which is great. Like, whenever a film about a queer person gets that sort of attention, I think it's great. Remember a few years ago, it was Moonlight that won the best film, and that was a fantastic occasion.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't need to be into it, Suzy, because I've got you to update us. What's going on?
There were a couple of other films that I wish were in the nominations list but didn't quite make it, but hopefully we'll find an opportunity to talk about those. But I thought, because the limelight is going to be on Maestro, so that's what we're talking about today.
That's right. And of course, Maestro is streaming on Netflix. If you catched it and you managed to catch it and you want to comment, 0427 569 949 is the number. John from Seaford says, absolutely loved Maestro, touched on everything in his life beautifully. Suzy, what did you think of it?
Not only did Leonard Bernstein compose the music for the brilliant West Side Story, he was considered one of the greatest conductors of his time. In the Netflix film about his life, Maestro, we learn not only about his impressive career, but probably more engrossing is the story of his tumultuous marriage with Broadway actress Felicia Montealegre Cohn. Leonard was queer, probably bisexual, but most likely gay. Felicia was never in the dark about his sexuality and accepted that Leonard's dalliances were always going to be a part of their life together. People do change, however, and a time comes when Felicia thought enough is enough, and what had been a convenient arrangement became unacceptable, and something simply had to give. Leonard Bernstein was born in 1918, so it's understandable that his queerness, like many of his generation, was closeted. And even though world famous, he lived publicly as a straight man. Now, Maestro is nominated for several Oscars, and what a high-profile film like this does is to rewrite emphatically the legacy of an iconic figure in American music. Claiming Leonard as one of our own is surely a thing to rejoice for the LGBTQIA+ community. Directed by and starring Bradley Cooper, who displays an enjoyable flamboyance in his performance and in his filmmaking, a flamboyance commensurate with Hollywood styles of that era. Felicia is played by the always amazing Carey Mulligan, who does a typically beautiful job of the role. Ultimately, though, for all of its high-octane emotionality expressed through Bernstein's passionate music and fiery marriage, Maestro is never really very moving. We see characters going through great turmoil, but we don't get very involved. Maybe the film's obsession with stylistic gestures keeps our viewing experience too much in the head and not enough in the heart. Warren, I thought it's trying to pull too many visual tricks and found myself distracted by a lot of those cinematic statements. What do you think?
I agree with you, Suzy, 100%. The heart wasn't in it for me, and I was, to be honest with you, I was more focused on Felicia and her story rather than anything else going on in the movie. I thought Carey Mulligan did an amazing job in it, and I thought, wow, if you look at what happened, I mean, how much of ourselves do we have to give up sometimes to be in a relationship with someone who's a big personality?
Yeah, there is a lot of unsaid stuff about her psychology. I think there's a lot of respect given to her, and they didn't want to speculate too much about the decisions she made. But you do feel like, oh, what was she thinking? Mm-hmm. In a way, a lot of what she did was admirable and understandable because of the times. But I'm really interested in the psychology and also like the social aspects. Like, did she want to be married, so badly to a man like that? Mm. Is it only a matter of love, or were there other reasons? If there were other reasons, I would have been really interested in learning about those.
Yeah, and we didn't necessarily find those out in the movie itself. But I looked at it and I thought, how would you... I mean, if I was her, I couldn't have put up with it. I would have been out in 5 minutes. I felt like, she was propping him up, basically. She was there for him, and she was giving up, I suppose, her life as well in some respects. She did have her career, and you notice at the end of it, she's sort of like, I'm so glad to be back working, and I feel like I'm here again. But how much of her personal life and that did she give up just to support him? Look, I focused on her. I found the movie a bit distracting. I found, I was pausing it to see how much longer it had to go. I did enjoy watching it, but it didn't, I suppose, evoke any emotion in me. And when it doesn't do that, I get a bit bored.
I agree. I think it was on many levels interesting. Like, you were curious about where the story was going to go, and a lot of visual stuff was very entertaining. He did a lot of stylistic things. There were a few scenes of the actor, Bradley Cooper doing the conducting, which was really good to watch. It shows that he has a talent in that area, but it just kind of didn't make you feel very much, and which is a bit awkward because the characters and the actors are showing a lot of emotion, and you feel like, I feel a little bit distant from it. And earlier when you were talking about Felicia's reasons and her feelings about in the marriage, I think a lot of women of that time, whether they were, for whatever reason, very, very few were able to leave. At that time, divorce was such a rare occurrence in these kind of societies. So, and you might not be married to a gay man, but a lot of women were suffering in silence just because of the very concept of marriage, a very traditional thing at I think quite a conservative time.
And there's the two things, isn't there? There's the I suppose the onus on the gay person to be honest about themselves, but then again, we're also in a situation where there are consequences if you're honest. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there, isn't it? On one hand, you think, well, why be dishonest? Why get into these things in the first place? But then, but there is the pressure of society to do this stuff and to conform, and family and religion and all this stuff as well. And so there's both sides of the argument there. It's really, I find it really difficult to work out who is in the moral right and who's not.
Well, it was a very dark time. And, there was no way that he could have made more sort of noble decisions. Either way, he was wrong, right? He would be persecuted either way. And I think in that way that the film, made the right decision of kind of not punishing him in any way, and kind of making you understand the situation that they were in. But I do feel like they needed a little bit of more of an expression of trauma, maybe. Maybe we needed to see more. I think there were a few moments where the camera was pulled really far away. There was a really key argument scene between the two, and they didn't give you the close-ups. And I feel like if we were able to see more of Felicia's face as she was kind of screaming at him for the first time, like we never saw her scream at him, and the moment where she does scream at him, the camera was so far away. Maybe they didn't want her to look kind of mean, but you also felt like we needed to kind of feel more what she felt.
Yeah, I agree with you. It just, the emotion wasn't there in the film. And the other thing is, what about when the daughter was asking about the rumours and he lied to her?
Yeah, like these days, if these confrontations happen, we like to think that it's resolved in a more progressive way. But, it was like late 70s or something. And I remember it very clearly. There's no way that he was going to come out. No matter how much trust and love there was at home, I just remember that atmosphere at the time. You just can't do it, especially when you're so wealthy, you've got so much fame, there's so much to lose. And I guess he also knew that if he lost all his fame and money and his career, it would take his family down. Like, his daughter wants the truth, but in a way she can't handle the truth, if the truth came out. Like, all her wealth as well is going to disappear.
One thing that I did love, and we are talking about the movie Maestro, which you can stream on Netflix at the moment. One thing that I loved, Suzy, was the musical bits. when the orchestra was playing, I turned it right up. And, you know, I'm not huge into classical music, but when it's there, I'll enjoy it. And I loved it. I really loved it. And it reminded me of when I was a kid and my mum forced me to learn the piano. And I would go to this teacher, and I hated the teacher. She was a real nasty woman. And I would go and learn the piano. She used to slap me over the fingers with this cane thing if I didn't get it right. It was terrible. And my parents were like, why don't you want to go there anymore? Anyway, so I did. I learnt an instrument, and I've lost touch with that side of me. But turning the music up during those moments of performance was just amazing. That's what I did love about the movie.
You know, there's something to be said about Bradley Cooper's attachment to the music. I think that's his greatest passion about this project. There is a lot to be said about him not being a gay person and him not being a Jewish person. I think those things that we criticize, you know, like because I do sort of a critical analysis of these things, and we do have discussions about, well, is he allowed, you know, quote unquote, to play a gay man, allowed to play a Jewish man? And lots of people will say no, and some will say yes. And in this film, you know, whatever your thoughts are, the truth is he doesn't make you feel very much on those fronts, but he makes you feel a lot when the music is on. So it shows, it shows where his personal passions are. And, you know, and then I would question, he could have made better decisions with, maybe he would, if he found someone else to play it, we would feel more for the character, and he would take care of how the camera was working, because all the stuff he worked with the camera and how the film was cut was just brilliant.
I agree with you. Did you learn an instrument, Suzy, coming from Singapore?
When I was really small, I think I was maybe 7 years old, I had a year of playing the Japanese organ. You know those electric organs?
Oh, yes.
That they had the foot pedal?
Oh, yes. Did you learn that?
Yeah.
Were there two keyboards?
I learned with the right hand, the left hand keyboard. I did about a year of that, and then when I went to school, I did about a year of the flute.
Oh, Suzy, we have to get you playing the flute one day. We have to.
I wasn't good at all. But you know, I think for children to learn those things are so important. And you know, I don't think I was very good with playing those things, obviously, but I really appreciated being able to read the score. And I think that that's a really good skill to have a little bit of music theory in my background. I'm very grateful for.
Is there a lot of pressure on people of Asian background to learn instruments?
Not in my family. It was amazing. Like my neighbor bought one of those electronic organs, and you know it had these electronic beats that would play, and I was so fascinated. That's right. And I said, I need to learn that. And when I got there, I found it hard to concentrate. I didn't have a very natural affiliation with it, unfortunately. I wish I was, you know, more of a natural born talent in that regard.
Oh, you have many other talents though, Suzy, which is great.
Thank you.
What is our homework for next week?
Next week, we're staying in mid-20th century America with a new series, Feud, Capote versus the Swans, in which celebrated writer Truman Capote surrounds himself with the most elite women of New York high society. So it's going to be an extreme glamour with Feud on Binge when I see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Suzy. Feud on Binge next week.
Joy Drive.